We have our partner back on the line, Ms. Keisha L. Jackson. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver. And she brought us a panelist, Troy J. Broussard, Senior Advisor of AARP, Veterans and Military Families Initiatives. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic.
It's good to have you both on.
John.
So we're going to talk about caregiving and fraud support for veterans and their families. So tell me a little bit about this fraud support. What do you mean by that in the realm of caregiving? Like Keisha?
Yes. Keisha? Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Sean. Hey, this is a great topic. I wanted to bring this to the audience. For caregivers in particular, whether it's military caregivers or a person that's caregiving for a former military person, or it's very prevalent out there that you can get calls to be scammed, from prescription medicine to older people getting different type of romance scams. So to have someone like Troy to be able to come and just, talk a little bit about what AARP is doing to help protect the military and the veterans and the military veteran caregiver populace is just really, really helpful. It's something that I wanted to bring to the show for quite some time, so I'm really happy to have it today.
And Troy, so I know AARP does a lot of work with seniors, and also we do a lot of research and also go into a lot of the numbers to issues that are important to seniors. What are some of the problems that seniors are facing when it comes to fraud, particularly veterans?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Sean, I want to thank you for your service in the Army National Guard. I am an Army veteran myself, so it's always great to speak to other veterans as well. So absolutely excited to be here today to talk to the audience today as it relates to a big major issue that we're finding is that a lot of family caregivers, veteran caregivers, and regular audiences as well, but especially veterans are being targeted by fraud. And what we're finding is that 40% of veterans and their families are more likely to be targeted by scammers than the civilian population. And for us, that's very alarming. There was a report by the Federal Trade Commission that was done in 2021 that we found that over $260 million was lost from specific scams targeting veterans and their families. That's $102 million higher than it was in 2021. So we created some resources that we could assist veterans and their families to fight back and prepare them to fight back in this time here.
So why are veterans targeted? You would think that veterans be more savvy, actually. And I've heard this statistic before, but why are veterans particularly more vulnerable?
Yeah, and I'm going to say more vulnerable because they're being targeted by the scammers. The scammers know that veterans have access to benefits, different benefits than the regular civilian population. When you're talking about veterans, they have access to, some pension benefits, some veteran benefits as well, home loans. And what happens is scammers see that as opportunity to go ahead and to really focus their attention. And what they'll do is, Sean, they'll focus on the areas of, oh, you served in the military. Thank you for your service, and use that military jargon to break and to create that relationship. And then once the trust is built, then at that point, let's verify some of your information. Then once they, grab your Social Security number, so not only are they scamming you for these things I mentioned, but now they have your Social Security number to do identity theft as well. So it just compounds itself. So we created some resources to help our veterans and their families fight back from that.
So before we go a little more in detail on some of the things that are going on, what are some of the things that veterans can do to protect themselves from this type of fraud?
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think the number one thing that I would tell our veterans and their families to do is to make sure that you develop what I like to call develop your no script. Be ready and be prepared that when that person calls in, and if something does not sound correct and something's not going the way that you're suspecting it should, hang up the phone. That's the first thing. But I would also recommend that folks join a robocall service, blocking service for donotcall.gov. Make sure you make sure you sign up for that so you can prevent those calls from coming in. You won't prevent all of them, but you could severely lessen them. And if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The Veterans Administration will not call you to verify your Social Security number or anything along those lines. So please just make sure you develop that no script and keep your guard up for anyone that's asking to verify your personal information. Do not share it over the phone or, online now as well, too. Be careful.
Another thing that I've been reading about is a lot of people are trying to impersonate veterans so they can, not just to target veterans, but to target people in general. A lot of scams out there. There was a few years back, and if you remember, there was the Johnny Bobbitt case where there was a GoFundMe page that was created for a homeless veteran, when the actuality was all a hoax. They made up a story where a lady's car broke down, and this veteran came and helped her out, and she gave him some money because of that. Right. And then they felt bad for him, so they went and created this GoFundMe page. But the reality of it was all a big hoax. And then they eventually got busted for that. What are some of the things what are some of the red flags that people need to look for when you have someone impersonating or lying to you about, a cause or a not-for-profit they want you to donate to?
Yeah, what I would recommend our listeners do today is to ensure that when you receive those types of calls talking about gift to this veteran charity, I would ask a couple of questions. The first thing I would ask is, give me the name of the charity and who's the best person to contact for that particular charity. And then at that point, that scammer the red flag will alert them to that they're not trying to give me their credit card number. They're asking me more information, which I don't have. But I would get that information from them if they do give it and tell them that you're going to reach out to that organization directly. And then what your listeners can do is also focus on going to a website called charitynavigator.org. And that particular web page there, you can check the validity of that charity for veterans. So I would just make sure that you don't provide any type of credit card information, Social Security information, anything along those lines. Make sure you verify before you provide any information to any of these scammers, especially, your personal funds or anything along those lines.
And why do you think that the numbers have jumped so dramatically over the last year? Because you mentioned earlier that the numbers are actually up in 2021.
Yeah, I do believe, with more people being home over the last 2 years, that could have been a correlation of that as well. And just the opportunity. The opportunity is there for people are at home. People will answer the phone. So these scammers have an opportunity to uncover if someone is a veteran by just asking a couple of questions. Because as veterans, we're always looking for that second mission after we have served our country. And any opportunity that we can help a fellow colleague, we're more apt to do that. And those scammers know that. But we are arming our veteran community with the right resources to do that. And they can go to the AARP.org/veterans, where we can provide and give them free resources to where they can go ahead and protect themselves against these scammers.
And so a lot of people, especially in the financial industry, recommend using online tools to try and secure your data, freezing your credit, for example, or using online bill pay as opposed to writing checks. A lot of veterans, however, are old school. They want to still write the paper check. Is that a safety risk or a security breach? I would definitely say that, whatever makes the veteran or their family most comfortable, but just be mindful that put in a security freeze on your account so that this is very impactful. This will help prevent any type of scammers. If they do capture your Social Security number, that will prevent them from setting up any type of new lines of credit or really causing further damage. So I highly recommend putting a security freeze on your account. It's very easy to do. And if you do that, you will be able to protect yourselves. And I think that would be important, as well as being set up on that do not call registry.
But the security freezes will do this. And I'll share just to highlight what you mentioned, that 81% of veterans and military have said in a survey that we did that they did not have any type of security freezes on their credit reports, and they could easily go to annualcreditreport.com for more information on how to get those credit freezes. I highly recommend it.
And so a credit freeze basically allows you to freeze your credit with all three bureaus, and then once if someone tries to use your Social Security number, they have to run your Social Security number, so it won't work. They won't. So whatever institution that tried to run your credit will just get a block because they can't pull your credit.
That is correct. I'll share a really quick story with you that I actually did that. I put the freeze on my account and went out to purchase a vehicle for my daughter. And while I was waiting at the dealership to get everything taken care of, I received a phone call saying, Mr. Broussard, someone is trying to set up or purchase a vehicle, trying to use your credit. Is that you or is it someone else? I said, no, it's me. It's okay. And it was fine. So it works. I probably should have, told my daughter that, sorry, we can't do it because I put a block on my account and we can't get this car for you. But, that wouldn't have been a wise thing for a father to do. But, not to make light about it, but it's just to show the validity of it and how it really is there to protect you, as well as if you're going to do something online like we talked about, let's make sure we keep our firewall and antivirus software up to date. That's going to be important. But we do want to share that, AARP has this information that I shared, as well as, the AARP, AARP.org/veteran site, and that site gives you access to all of these free resources at no cost. So members are non-members, okay? So.
I remember there was go ahead, Keisha.
Sean, I wanted to mention, like Troy was talking about, I remember, I think I was active duty at the time, and I went to a doctor's appointment, and I got a call from my bank while I was right to go into the appointment, and they said, Miss Jackson, are you in Norway? And I said, no, I'm not. And it's like, we just saw a deduction. It was like $2 or something from your account. Wow. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll run it. It could even be smaller than that, just to see and verify that it's a good account, to establish that connection. And then after that, they'll go in. So I made sure with my bank, I have that fraud alert set up with my bank. So they'll call me, they'll report. I'll get emails that comes in to let me know, on the different things that I have, different accounts that I have set up. But I also wanted to mention, when we talk about social media, a lot of times as caregivers, you could be part of a social media group, support group. And for instance, Facebook, you can be targeted. Someone may send you a message if they're reading something that you wrote and say, hey, I want to connect with you. I'm really feeling sorry that you're going through this. And then that could be leading into getting additional information to set you up for that scam. So we have to be very vigilant and very careful in that role, and it's something that we can't allow ourselves to become lax in, because when you're thinking that someone is just really being genuine and pure, it could be, but it also could be someone that's trying to take advantage of you or your loved one.
And I think you touched on something really important, Keisha, because a lot of seniors are sometimes alone. So they don't have a family member or someone in the house to kind of watch them. And then sometimes if they're lonely, they might get that phone call or get these relationships that are established with someone who may have nefarious means to try to take advantage of them. And there's just no eyeballs on the scene to really see what's really happening to protect them. And I think it's critical for caregivers, for caregivers to really, to be aware of this. We had an incident recently where someone had surrendered an annuity for someone. And it was obvious that the signatures did not match the person who was actually set up the account. But it looked like it was the notary was actually the one that took the funds out of the account.
Wow. It's almost adding, insult to injury, where we have these caregivers, veteran caregivers all across the country that's really assisting veterans and giving back, and then to have something like this happen, So when you're looking at, fraud in veterans, that's very, sad in their families, but a caregiver to a veteran, or to me, that is just, that's why we have to create these free resources to protect them as well, because that's the last thing that we want to do is add any additional pressures to their situation.
I think it's also critical, too, because nowadays, especially in the financial industry, we have what's called trusted contacts now. So where you
Yes.
name someone as that you trust, that someone that necessarily can't get information on your account per se or information on your personal private matters, but at least can be reached out to in case someone feels like you've been compromised. So if we can't get a hold of you or someone can't reach you, we have a trusted contact that can be reached and say, hey, maybe we should talk to your friend or talk to your person because we have some concerns. Just to have more eyeballs on the scene. Because it seems like this is becoming, with the technology, we're getting a lot more fraud across the board. Particularly what I don't understand is when we get calls on our cell phones from out-of-state numbers, just random out-of-state numbers calling us on our cell phones, and they don't. Sometimes you pick up the phone, they don't even say anything. I do not understand what that game is about.
Yeah, what that is about, that I will share with you, what we have seen is that those calls that come through, they're being dialed by a computer, because what you'll understand is it's never a follow-up call, if you notice, right? Mm-hmm. It's never a follow-up. For example, if that call, if no one answers the phone and if you hang up, they're not going to call you right back, because they're being dialed by a robocall, and that's what I mentioned. By getting your phone set up and your cell phone set up on these do not call registers, they help to lessen it, or it allows you to easily recognize those. Normally, if you have an unrecognizable phone that's calling your cell phone especially, I would probably, not answer that phone call. Mm-hmm. That's something that I normally do. I mean, I know that it could be a family member calling from a different number, but 9 times out of 10, it's someone trying to either sell you something or defraud you, unfortunately.
And
go ahead. I wanted to add all that, and be careful of emails that are coming into you, because it may not be that person that you think it is, and it could be someone phishing or trying to get information. So you have to be so diligent in making sure that you're protecting yourself, because everybody are out there. There are a lot of people with false apps. You're thinking that you're downloading an app that's going to help you to connect your family with a doctor or a different type of resource or something like that, and you find out once you put your information in there, now they got your credit card information. So, we say all of these things, and it could be overwhelming, it could be scary, but you do have to think about these things and have to put yourself in a different mindset to be on the offense, making sure that you're protecting yourself and always being on the defense.
It's not a bad idea just to wait. If you see that email come through or that phone call come through, don't answer the phone. I don't answer any out-of-state calls. If I don't recognize the number, if it's got a foreign area code, I do not answer that call. Let it go to voicemail. Then 9 out of 10, they don't leave a voicemail. The only thing I do get irritated by is that they'll leave a 3-minute pause on my answering service. So it's like 3 minutes of nothing, and they usually call about 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning when you're sleeping. But take some time, pause for a second, say, hey, does it make sense that my bank is sending me this email to click on this link to do this or that? Call the bank up.
Sometimes when they do that, and with those calls, they'll want you to say your name. And they may not say anything else, but once you say your name, now that's given authorization, because now your name is said to do particular things.
That's crazy.
And I think, those numbers I shared about the reported numbers of how much these scams are costing, or how much was stolen from the veteran and military families. It was somewhere around the numbers around 267 million. That was what was reported. Sean? Hey, Keisha, that's what was reported. Wow. Can you imagine how many people did not report because of some level of embarrassment? Mm-hmm. We want to take away that level of embarrassment and turn that into something empowering, how you can help. And how you can help is whenever you reach, what we're doing at AARP, when you reach out to us through our Fraud Watch Network, if you let us know what those frauds are, we will make sure to share that with people across the country to make sure that those scams, that someone else is not is not being a predator of these scammers. So, you want to if you are scammed, and please make sure you go ahead and report that so that we could share that with others so it doesn't happen to anyone else, and maybe shine more light on getting tougher laws on those who do these types of crimes. I mean, I think that's going to be important as well. So.
I agree. And Keisha L. Jackson, U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver, brought us a great panelist, Mr. Troy Broussard. He's a senior advisor at AARP, Veterans and Military Family Initiatives. I appreciate both of you guys' time.
Thanks, Sean.
Sean, it was a pleasure to be here. Appreciate your time, and thank you, Keisha, for allowing me to be here.